Welcome back to the Peer-to-Peer podcast. I've got an amazing panel with myself today. I've got Jane, Mia, and Alexandra. So Mia, let's come to yourself first of all. Estate agency has long been dominated by men, has been referred to as a boys' club many, many times. How has that affected your career since you started?
Ooh, misogynistic men in a estate agency. I like this question. As a young 26-year-old woman in a estate agency, they've affected it loads, to be honest. It's probably one of the reasons a year and a half ago that I thought about stepping away and just doing something completely different. I have been downtrodden by a lot of men in a estate agency, women as well, but more men than women. They have played a pivotal role in why I probably felt like I couldn't do this when I first started. But since TA UK, that's all changed. I've not met any misogynistic men actually, which is weird to say. But yeah, it's been very, very different.
Yeah, the company culture here is phenomenal. I don't think it would just be allowed. It's just as simple as that. But yeah, I felt for sure the glass ceiling for so many throughout like my career, where I've performed better, had better stats, better results, yet the young, inexperienced boy was promoted above me, and it's really disheartening, and it's really frustrating actually. And personally, it does eat away at your self-esteem.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable.
I started in corporate, so when I started, I was actually employed by a woman who I still speak to regularly. She's started her own thing now in Winsford. She's an incredible woman. But a couple of weeks after I started, a man took over her role. And I remember her talking to me about why she stepped down. And it was because the people in this big corporate company, I won't name the company, Connells, had practically just, there was about 95% men. And there was no reason as to why the women weren't getting up there. But she just said it was a bit of a little clique, really. Yeah. And a lot of the women never really got up there to get a seat.
It's hard to get a voice, isn't it? It's hard to be heard. Yeah.
And Jane, what's your experience on this?
Well, I think I've had a bit of a mixture actually, because at one point our CEO was a woman and the board became predominantly women actually. And that was
amazing.
Was a really positive experience. However, I've also had the flip side to it earlier on and then later on. And I definitely have felt in many times where it's a case of those who shout loudest and the bigger, brasser type of people, predominantly men, have got a voice. Mm-hmm. And if you're not that type of person, but you've performed and proven yourself over the years in different ways, because I've always been a person who has built trust within the franchisees I worked with, but maybe not necessarily shouted about how great I was or things like that. And that's probably where you've just said about the self-esteem sometimes. I think those who are shouting more and having bigger voices and that's sort of being taken as true, and, look at how great I am type of thing.
And they'd all do a lot of networking behind the scenes. Like they'd do the golf days. Unfortunately, in my younger days, they'd all go to strip clubs, which neither of them are my scene.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the promotions seemed to happen, which was totally not okay. It's a HR point of view. It's not okay.
The golfing thing baffles me. I want to be invited.
Yeah.
I can't golf, but I'd like to learn. But it seems very cliquey. Yeah. I see it on my LinkedIn all the time, which I don't love LinkedIn, to be honest, but I'm just there for the sake of
it's good to have a
all the drama that Steph brings to it. That's why I'm on LinkedIn, to support. But you always see it, and I'm never invited.
No.
It's very cliquey.
So how does this look? So I'm largely ignorant to this stuff because obviously I am a white, middle-aged-ish male. So how does that look in the day-to-day? Is it things that, managers, you mentioned about the glass ceiling. Is it kind of, it's banter, but you don't see it as banter? What does that look like on a day in, day out, and how you feel that you're kind of treated differently to if you were a male?
I think you have to do more and go above and beyond than your male counterpart. Your figures seem to be have to be 30% extra for it to be seen. It feels like you have to do so much to push and get seen. And I think it is because it's women's nature not to shout as loud as men. They tend to shout louder.
Yeah.
And so you have to do so much more.
Yeah, I agree. I always have the conversation with my clients, specifically on open houses. For me, a lot of people come in, they always say, "Oh, are you the homeowner?" And I go, No, I'm the estate agent. Do I not look like one? And they all say the same thing. They all say, "Oh, you just expect them to look a certain way. And I had a couple last weekend who said, I don't know, you say estate agent, you think male, suit, pointy shoes, briefcase. I don't know, like, I just don't look like an estate agent. And I think it's just, we are different. Women are different.
We're better at listening.
We completely, we're better at a lot of things. But I just think it's the appearance-wise as well. You say estate agent, even my mind, my younger self, you think estate agent, you think middle-aged man or older man who's been doing it for 35 years.
But you're way more relatable. Your
Thank
buyers
you.
and your sellers are way more relatable. They will bond a much better. They'll form a much better bond with you.
I think
that
that's
reason.
that's phasing out.
It's proven with me how successful you've been in reaction to what you've been through and had.
It's phasing out, definitely. I think a lot of people are seeing a fresher approach to estate agency and a different way. You know, I operate completely different to you. You operate completely different to me. And I think it's phasing out now that you say estate agent, you think middle-aged man with briefcase.
It's interesting, going back a lot of years, probably 15 years, and I was a branch manager at the time. And
I was a child.
You weren't born. But going back all those years, I can remember there was myself and another, Tracy was another manager of another branch in Acomb, and there was some sort of competition, or your targets met, or whichever it was that was running, and the prize was a golf trip.
Yeah.
And it's all that. Well, that would never, that subsequently was stopped and didn't go, once it was highlighted. But
I wonder who thought of that prize.
Well, I know
that's what the regional manager at the time thought everyone would want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And they did. All the rest of the managers definitely did. It was a great prize. But there was no sort of, at that point, any consideration necessarily that women were there.
Do you think that's dwindled out, though?
Well, I thought it had. I actually thought it had, because that was my experience, that it subsequently got better.
I don't think it has.
For
No,
me.
it's not. No.
And I was...
I only left High Street a few years ago. Was it 3.5 years ago? So, and I still felt it very prevalent there.
Yeah.
I saw it a couple of weeks ago. I won't
There you
name
go, that's
drop
really
who it
bad.
is.
Yeah.
But a few weeks ago on LinkedIn, this prize of a little golfing day or tickets to the football.
Yes.
Yeah.
So annoying. Like, I'm Welsh. I'm a rugby fan. Where's the tickets for the rugby?
I'm quite happy a spa day, personally.
Well,
No,
Spa
that's
day
right.
would be nice as well. But
Yeah.
it just seems a bit bizarre to me that it's golf or football.
Has there been any one particular thing in your career that's happened where you thought to yourself, this wouldn't have happened if I was a man?
Yeah, for sure. It's just the overlook of promotion. And it's the fact that I didn't go out socialising with them all. And therefore I was not considered, full stop, period. And at one point in another agency, I'd just got married. And my regional manager at the time was like, when are you going to have a baby? When are you going to have a baby? Are you going to
I've
have a
had that
baby?
before. Yeah.
I'm like, is this totally inappropriate
Yeah.
at all? The fact that I'm going to have a child and maybe go on maternity leave.
I got asked that when I was leaving.
Their biggest fear. And I was just like, this is not fair.
Bizarre. Yeah, I'm obviously only 26 now, so it was two and a bit years ago now that I was on the high street. But when I was stepping up, one of the questions to me was, well, we have to bear in mind that you are edging into your 30s. Rude. I wasn't. I was 24, edging
young.
into my 30s.
Wow.
I'm still not quite there.
You've
I
got a fair
don't want to
way
talk
to go.
about it. But they were asking me, you've been with your partner a while, and are you
totally
thinking babies
inappropriate.
in the future? Completely inappropriate.
You wouldn't ask
Not
a guy
just-
that, would
Not
you?
just for the sake of some women not wanting children. Some can't have children. What a bizarre question to ask. And that was a pinnacle thing for them to ask before they promoted me. And obviously, when I got that promotion, the same day I stepped away, which was a bit of a fuck you to them, to be honest.
Well done, girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had experiences, and one, I suppose, not that long ago, really, in the last 5 years, whereby I've had to sit in a room with a middle-aged white man and hear his stories of sexual achievements, let's just say.
Lovely.
Disgusting.
To the point where I actually found myself actually having to say, well, if you think I'm going to do that with
To
you,
step up, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
that isn't going to happen. And I actually felt comfortable that I'd tackled that comfortably for me, I'm a pub landlord's daughter, and I actually think I'd heard everything. And so I was able to handle it and felt that I could.
But if you've been a woman that wasn't quite as
100%, yeah.
Well, yes,
it would have
100%.
been unfair on that other.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And in all honesty, I hadn't really considered that actually, and I should have done. But it wasn't till probably a couple of days later when this guy mentioned it that I'd said this to him in a group with my team. That actually that then sort of blew up to be something else. And it was at that point I did think, and it was brought up to me, that if I'd been having these sort of experiences with this particular person, why hadn't I spoken out? Well, it's quite tough to speak out.
Because you don't want to
actually.
cause the ripples.
No,
You
because
just
there's
quietly want it to have gone away.
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of people, I think, will just act like it was nothing, like that wasn't inappropriate, that was just banter, or
Well, that's
just
how
being
I'm
crossing
funny.
the line.
Yeah.
It's way over the line.
And I've been, I suppose, brought up or been through 80s, 90s culture whereby that you have had to accept it. And I dare say if I really analysed and thought back to lots of things, there could have been loads of things I could answer, say to this. But I do think you do absorb an awful lot. But that does put you in the situation where I want my job. I absolutely want my job. And at times, I was a single parent. I absolutely needed my job. And so, you can't afford to be speaking out necessarily and saying some things. Now, that said, I don't know that it's done me any damage, in terms of being able to progress. However, I suppose in that last few years of my career, although I've got a new career now, but my last few years of my career, I think probably because I was a woman, I didn't actually progress as quickly as I should have done, I think, now having looked back. And I think that's one of the reasons why.
What a powerful thing to do to actually speak out on it, though, because I've known
Well
a
done.
ton of women, young women as well, that it just became so normal in a culture where you're in that office. And again, it was always classed as funny banter.
Yes.
I stepped into a state agency at like 18, and the amount of situations, but I just thought it was normal towards the end of it, of people that would say, the mortgage advisor in an old company I worked in, he would work in the office above. He was married with 5 children. And the amount of times that I would go home thinking, oh my God, that wasn't appropriate. I was 18.
Yeah,
I think he was 35 at the time. And you just kind of make that, laugh it off. It was, what can you really do about it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the guys in the office used to knock on the desk when a pretty girl used to go past.
Yeah.
So condescending.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
But that goes down to this whole wolf whistling and all of
It
that
is.
conversation, doesn't
And
it?
it
I think we
does,
could
but
sit here
it's
for ages.
that's from above. That's the regional manager, and it's
culture.
all from above, and the culture of the company. And it's because not enough women are employed further up
Or
to
spoke out
drive
about
a
it.
good culture
Yeah.
of the company.
Which is when you hear that you spoke out about it. Well, the older I got, I remember being, 23 and saying something and saying, come on, is that appropriate? I think it was something similar to like going past the window. And I went, guys, really? Like, they were single at the time. I was like, really, is that how you think you're going to meet the woman in your dreams? And they all sort of went, oh. And I thought afterwards, I was like, oh my God, they didn't speak to me for a few hours afterwards. And I thought, imagine I
They've
hadn't
been called
said-
out. That's
yeah,
why
they've been
they
called
know they
out.
were
And I
right.
think I became a bit more direct with my approach because I saw a trainee who was uncomfortable in the corporate industry. And I remember my younger self thinking, I've always been outspoken. It's not going to change.
But it's good that you can hold your own, but it's not fair that others who haven't got the confidence can't hold their own.
Yeah.
So for any men that are listening into this, what's something they can take on board that can change the history we've had of sort of the boys' club and that sort of casual sexism, let's call it, and
I
sort of
think-
progressing the industry?
Just think before you speak. It's simple, isn't it? Just have a think. Is it banter or is it going too far? If you're not sure, it's probably going too far. Just have a really think about people's feelings. Let's just, just have a 10-minute conversation with yourself quickly before.
Yeah.
And don't get caught up in it. If you think it isn't right, it's good. Bystanding is not okay. By the fact that you're not doing anything when you see other people do it, that's you're condoning it then.
Yeah,
And bystanding is not okay.
It'd be nice to see more men actually call out men's
Yeah.
behaviour. But it's not all men. You know, I think that's
No,
important to say. There's so many
definitely.
men that I have seen call out that behaviour. Managers as well. So I don't want to sit here and, you know, bash all the men in the industry,
no.
because I've met some incredible men in the industry as well who've been big advocates for. Actually, a lot of them say that female estate agents tend to be better
Well, they
than
are,
themselves.
'cause we listen.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, you say that now because there's 3 of us sat here.
kill me otherwise.
Waiting to kiss our arse.
Yeah.
It's not all men. It's just some of them let the team down.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree with that. I think, you know, I've worked with and met some incredible men in my career, and I know that they're out there, and it's a small minority, but those small minority do have a big voice, and whether they'll get to a stage or whether they'll just grow old and go away, I don't know, because I think. Things like you talked about what we could do for change. I think going back to recruitment, even making sure that when job applications come through, they're not noted as male or female. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So there cannot be this bias towards filling a post because it's a male or indeed a female, because you should be chosen on merit.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
the same thing is possibly easier in big corporates than it is the smaller independents, to be able to do the same on promotions wise, and things like that they should be looked at as a blank.
I think it's down to for the corporate, it's down to the HR and how the organisations run and their culture.
Yeah.
And, this is a proven why it works well, because the way we hire here at CA UK, we haven't got this issue with male or female. It's just not on. But is that because we've got founders that are both sexes, and therefore it feels really even?
I think so, and I think because we're self-employed as well. Why would we put up with it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't, would you? I think, and just taking that leap to go self-employed, I think it does give you a bit more probably backbone, and
You've got a
makes you
certain
be able.
tenacity,
Exactly, because you can then look back and think perhaps you'd handle things differently having come out of these different situations, wouldn't you? I think we can all look back in hindsight and say, oh, well, I wish I'd said this or done that, or all these different things. But I think, it's good.
I really appreciate all your honesty today.
That's all right, thank you.
Thank you so much for saying absolutely brilliant. Men do better.